We're going to look at two more types of quadrilaterals in this video, which are trapezoids and kites. So the first one is a trapezoid, and it's going to look something like this. Now, a trapezoid only has one pair of parallel sides. Everything that we've looked at so far before has had two sets of parallel sides. They were all parallelograms originally. But a trapezoid only has one set of parallel sides. And then we're also going to have two pairs of what we call a base angle. The base angles are we have two bases. A base angle would be here and here, and a base angle would be here and here. The other sides that we have we call legs. So the bases are the ones that are parallel, and I can write that out. Bases are parallel. And the other two sides we call legs. Now we're going to focus a lot on a special type of trapezoid that we call an isosceles trapezoid, and that means that the legs are congruent. This leg is congruent to that leg. Now you'll notice that these sides are parallel, but they're not congruent. Now in isosceles triangle, if it is an isosceles triangle, then the pair of base angles are going to be congruent. So this angle right here is going to be the same as that angle, and this angle up here is the same as that angle. You'll also see, because this is along a straight line, these are going to be supplementary. So that means they're going to add up to 180. So these two angles will add up to 180. These two angles add up to 180, giving us a total of 360 because it is a quadrilateral. If the quadrilateral also is an isosceles trapezoid, then the diagonals are congruent. So in this case, AC is congruent to BD. They would be the same length. So let's look at a couple of examples. The first example is going to ask us to find some of the other angles. So as I just said, remember this angle and this angle right here are going to be supplementary, or they're going to add up to 180 degrees. So we have the measure of angle C plus the measure of angle D is going to be 180 degrees. Well, we know the measure of angle C is 65 degrees plus the measure of angle D equals 180. So we subtract 65 from both sides. It goes away. So the measure of angle D is then going to be 115 degrees. So I'll write that right here. This one's 115 degrees. Now notice that these legs are congruent, so this is a isosceles trapezoid. And if that meaning it's isosceles triangle, the base angles are the same. So if this is 115, then that means the one next to it is 115. And then this angle down here is going to be the same as this one. So this one's 65 degrees. So D is 115, E is 115, and then F is 65 degrees. Another thing about isosceles triangles that we're going to look at are called mid-segments. And the mid-segment of a trapezoid is the segment that joins the midpoint should put an S of the legs. So here we have the trapezoid. The midpoint of RT, or halfway between RT, is right here. We're going to move to this problem. We're going to call this M in just a minute. And then the midpoint of AP, or halfway in between there, we call N. In this case. So the mid segment is also, you'll notice, it should be parallel to the bases. And the length of this is going to be half the sum of the lengths of the bases. So what that means, one, the mid-segment's parallel to the base, so MN is parallel to RA, and it's parallel to TP. MN's parallel to RA and TP. Now let's look at the second part, the length of the mid-segment. So let's call that MN is going to be equal to half of the sum of the bases. So if I add up the length of RA and the length of TP. And we're going to do a problem to kind of show what that looks like right here. So we want to find the value of x. We have an isosceles trapezoid. We have RT, or our QR is going to be our mid segment. And we have bases LM and PN. So if we transfer this trapezoid into this formula right here, QR is going to be equal to 1/2 the sum or adding up the bases. So LM plus PN. Now we actually have values or expressions for all of those, so let's plug those in. QR is x plus 2, which equals 1/2 times LM, which is 4x minus 10, plus PN, which is 8. We're going to simplify what's in here first. I have 4x, but then I have a negative 10 plus 8, so that's going to be x plus 2 equals 1/2 times 4x minus 2, because negative 10 plus 8 is a negative minus 2. Now we're going to distribute this 1/2 through that parentheses, which leaves us with x plus 2 equals 1/2 times 4 is 2, our x. 1/2 times a negative 2 is a negative 1. So now we have x plus 2 equals 2x minus 1. And we are going to get our x's together. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I'm going to rewrite this over here. So that leaves us with that goes away. It leaves us with 2 equals 2x minus x is just x minus 1. Then we're going to add 1 to both sides. We get x is equal to 3. We're going to look at one other type of quadrilateral, and that is a kite. And a kite is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of consecutive sides congruent and no opposite sides are congruent. So let's look at what that means. Consecutive meaning right next to, so it has 2 sets of sides that are right next to each other that are congruent. These 2 are congruent, these 2 are congruent. Notice they're right next to each other, they touch each other. But no opposite sides are congruent. So this side's not congruent to that side, and this side's not congruent to that side. The key property that we're going to look at with our kites comes with the diagonals. The diagonals are going to be perpendicular. So they're going to form a 90-degree angle. So if I'm looking here and I want to find the measure of these missing angles, well, the first thing I know, this angle right here is 90 degrees. I know that just by looking at it because these diagonals are going to be perpendicular. Now to figure out measure of angle 2, This one's 90 degrees. This one's 52 degrees. This angle, too, we don't know. But notice the shape that's made right here. It's a triangle. And so that means the interior angles are going to add up to 180. So we have 90 plus 52 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. Add these up. 90 plus 52 is 142 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. Subtract that from both sides. We get the measure of angle 2 is equal to 180 minus 142 is 38. So there's measure of angle 2. Now the measure of angle 3, because they're going to be the same triangle or the same shape, and this bisects it right here. This is all measure of angle 3 is also going to be 52 degrees. And those are the types of problems that you're going to see with kites.